Omaha Steaks makes it easy to keep great food on hand, so dinner time is simple and convenient. And right now, you can get 12 free burgers and free shipping for life when you shop at omahasteaks.com/onrepeat. Only Omaha Steaks gives you the freedom to set your menu your way with no commitments. Choose extra-aged, hand-carved steaks, plump and juicy air-chilled chicken, and so much more. Order once or set up recurring shipments for more savings, more convenience, and inflation-proof pricing. Want to change your menu? No problem. Swap items, skip a shipment, or cancel at any time with no questions asked. You're in control to get what you want when you want it, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. At Omaha Steaks, it's all about you. Visit omahasteaks.com/onrepeat to sign up for recurring shipments and get 12 free burgers, a $431 per year value, and free shipping for life. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details.
These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries, and with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Live at lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
For some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live? Is it live? Is it live?
From Walk-Ons in Bruley here, just off the Baton Rouge Bridge, Highway 1, Max Gotro Country. Welcome to the Monday edition of Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Charles Hannegriff along with Max Gotro. Jimmy Ott is on vacation all this week. We'll try to make do as he watches tennis in Europe.
He was doing pretty good this morning.
He seemed like he was up and at him early. The views are nice, right?
Oh yeah, Monaco is really good. I always enjoy the Grand Prix there, the Formula One. It's a really cool part of the world.
Because you've been?
I have not been to Monte Carlo, no.
Me neither. The picturesque setting of the tennis.
Yeah, it's up on like a cliff. You could see all these just wonderful buildings. Yeah. It's a very rich sort of tax haven place. And then I guess behind him is the coastline, which is apparently immaculate as well.
Yeah, well, he did find a place to get some action down on the tennis, I'm sure.
He did.
So we'll give you updates on him and Charlie. See if they're the other Charlie. We'll see if they're going to make it back. Big weekend. The Final Four. Two really good games and one all-timer ending comeback for Houston. The national championship game is set here tonight for Houston and Florida. You could come watch it at Walk-Ons. How convenient is it? Do you think the NCAA did this? Today's National Beer Day. Did you know that?
I did not.
I didn't know that either until I got here this morning and found out that today is National Beer Day. So if you're going to watch the national championship game here at Walk-Ons, come and enjoy one of the 4 dozen beers on tap. They've got some seasonal ales. The Vacation Juice Pale Ale is new and on tap right now. The NOLA Polymania is also right here. And they've got a new transfusion cocktail that we're going to be telling you about, limited time here at Walk-Ons. LSU with a series sweep in Norman, Oklahoma, in conditions that didn't look terribly comfortable for anybody. Interesting weekend in the SEC. Texas A&M gets no hit on in Game 1 and comes back and wins the series at Tennessee. A lot of SEC baseball will do that probably mostly in the second hour. Today, watch the golf. We had our consensus picks got into the top 5, and for just a second there, I thought we might have a chance with Ryan Gerard, but came up a little bit short. Brian Harmon, who won the 2023 Open Championship, is the winner. So he was exempt from the Masters anyway. So no free ticket to Augusta for anybody, right?
Yeah, we had Gerard there in the mix, who was moving up the leaderboards on a day when the conditions were very difficult. Even Harmon went backwards quite a bit during the day. We had Tom Hoagie, who was in the final group at 100-1, but no cigar there. So we'll see. The Masters week, I mean, I'm so excited. I'm giddy. I can't wait for the par 3 contest.
You gotta zoom right to Wednesday,
This
right?
is par 3. Well, the whole week it'll be great. I don't want to skip ahead, but yeah, between Masters updates with Chris Vernon, I love everything about this week, so I can't wait.
You know you're not invited to the Past Champions Dinner, right?
Unfortunately not, but I'm curious to hear stories from Tuesday as well. Just everything about this week is great. I'm so giddy.
I always thought that would be the ultimate charity live auction item, okay? If the Masters ever wanted to raise just an outlandish amount of money to give to some charity, auction off, because the only people that can go to the Past Champions Dinner are the past champions and the chairman of of Augusta. If they just said, to all of these gazillionaires, we'll let you come 1 year. You give us no telling how much money they could raise for some really good cause.
I think, unfortunately, even though there's one person in the world that can actually hold this occupation at a given time, I think I have a better chance of making the Champions Dinner as the chairman than as a champion, unfortunately.
Yeah, then we would find out if Elon Musk was a golf fan, right?
Yeah.
If he's got more money than anybody else. So lots going on. We're closing in on the NFL draft. The women's championship yesterday was a rout. In fact, all 3 of the women's games were routs. South Carolina and UConn easy in the national semifinals, and UConn laying pretty much a 30-burger on South Carolina. They led by as many as 32. They took control of the game very early in the contest. Early in the first, South Carolina hit the first 3 of the game, and after that, the other 39 and a half minutes of the game belonged to UConn. Gino Auriemma, 12th national championship, and talking like a guy that was glad he came back, but is thinking real hard. At least that's the way I took it. We'll get to that in a little bit too. About hey, this might be a good spot to go out. Thought about it last year. This one might say, okay, you know what? He's the oldest coach to ever win a national championship, men or women. Kelvin Sampson tonight can become the oldest man to win the national championship. He would overtake Jim Calhoun at UConn. But anyway, in the aftermath of that game, you don't see Gino get emotional too much, and he was. So last year, he thought about it. He even kind of admitted, is this it? Is he going to take a week or so and then say, you know what, this is a good place to ride off into the sunset?
Maybe help that Paige Beckers came back, but
sure.
Third year in a row, UConn's lifted a banner in the men's or women's.
Yeah, they're a pretty good basketball school, I would say. But the game of the weekend was the second national semifinal, or at least the story of the weekend for me, the national semifinal between Houston and Duke. Duke, who was a lot of people's picks, not us. The 3 of us actually had Houston on Friday, but the people's choice, the betting public, we'll get the exact numbers from Troy a little bit later on. Everybody's on Duke. Duke has been dominating in this tournament. They have had a fantastic year. They've got one of the best players, if not, the best player in college basketball in Cooper Flagg. A young team, but one that didn't look in any way intimidated by the surroundings. And I thought, Max, that they came out in the first half, really the first 30 minutes of the game, and they were the more physical team, which doesn't happen to Houston a whole bunch. I thought that there was a lot more movement on offense for Duke than there was for Houston. It wasn't just a case of missing shots. Duke forced Houston into, I thought, a lot of bad shots. The analytics guys were probably going crazy. in the first half because Houston, it seemed like, had to settle on a lot of different trips for these 12 to 15-foot fall-away jumpers, these contested, hard-to-hit shots that you almost never get fouled on, and Duke was simply getting better shots in the first half. What stuck in my mind was, watching the first half, that Duke was the more physical team. They looked like the more relaxed team. They weren't forcing things. They were the better team. They were shooting the ball a little bit better. But the other thing that stuck in my head was that they couldn't pull away. They bounced that lead up to 11 a couple of times, and there were stages where the last 3 minutes of the first half, they were up 11, and I said, these 3 minutes are crucial for Houston, really crucial, because if this goes from 11 to 16, game's over. But in the last 3 minutes of the first half, Houston clawed back, and instead of going down double digits, they went in the locker room down 6. And I thought those last 3 minutes of the first half were really, really important to set Houston up for the second half. So while for 17 minutes I thought Duke was clearly the better team, executing better, tougher, they were more physical, which is surprising against a Houston team. But in that last 3 minutes I thought, Duke can, I don't want to say put it away because you don't want to say that in the first half. But, man, if they take this lead from 11 to 16, I don't think Houston can come back. And it didn't. Instead of going from 11 to 16, it went from 11 to 6, and Houston went to the locker room with a little momentum.
Yeah, they were very fortunate to be down 6, Houston, no doubt. And honestly, I go in the game, I liked Houston in the game, but I expected them to kind of shock Duke a little bit in the first half, right? The physicality would kind of get to Duke. Wow, look, this is what we're in for. And then maybe Duke being the better team, let's be honest, the best team in the country, in my opinion, would kind of start to settle in a little bit in the second half. And I did have Houston winning the game, but, I thought they needed to get off to a hot start considering the moment, considering that they wanted to muck things up, make it a defensive contest. They couldn't win probably if Duke scored 75 points, and ultimately they came back. But, yeah, I did think – I was a little surprised how Houston was, as you mentioned, out-physical in that first half.
And it was a big deal into the second half because Duke came out and took control again. And they bumped the lead up to 14. And if they had a bigger lead at the half and then they come out and they do that in the first 12, 15 minutes of the second half, Houston's got no shot. How much time did we spend last week talking about can Houston score enough points to win the game? Sounds silly, right? What do you have to do to win the games? You got to score points. But Houston, their team total, I think, was 65 and a half. 65 and a half. We said if they score 65 or 66 points, is that enough to beat Duke?
And they're the best three-point shooting team in the country.
Right.
We still say that.
But everybody we asked, and even us who thought Houston had a great chance to win the game, no, I don't think 65 points is going to.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Beat Duke. How many more can they score than that realistically? If they score, if I'd have given you 70 points when we left Rufino's on Friday and said, I will give you the Houston Cougars, I will guarantee they will score 70 points, what chances would you have given them to win the game? That they will hold Duke under 70 points.
I think they would have covered. I'm not sure if they would have won.
That's exactly that's exactly where I am. I would have said, okay, 70 points, that's probably enough to get it inside of 5.5, but is that enough to win? if you'd told me that Houston was going to score 70 points, I'd have said Duke's chances of winning are about 80%.
The total closed like 137, so it ended up right around where they expected this game in terms of
You tell me
offense.
Houston's going to score 70, I think that Duke's got probably a 4-1 chance to win-ish. And then we get to the end where there's 30 seconds to go, 35 seconds to go. Houston's got the ball. They're down 6. What has to happen if you are down 6 with under 40 seconds, with the shot clock almost off?
And first of all, they chose not to foul and extend the game. That was a little bit of a unique circumstance. I was a little surprised by that with Sampson, especially considering Duke was in the 1-1.
Absolutely. Okay, so what has to happen if you're down 6 points with the shot clock about to be turned off? 2 things have to happen at that point for the team that is trailing to win. Number one, the leader's got to probably got to miss a free throw, maybe more than one, but at least got to miss a free throw somewhere, or you've got to not be able to take care of the ball. You got to get a turnover somewhere, and both of those things happened. Tyrese Proctor missed the front end. It only took one. Houston hit a 3, and then, oh boy, if Jimmy was here, he'd be, this is where he would be at his most aggravated. Can you get the ball in bounds? Can you draw up an inbounds play, the most important inbounds play of the year? Can you get the ball in? And they couldn't. We heard, at least I did, all day Sunday about how much I got out-coached. And for most of the game, I don't necessarily buy into that. I thought that Duke was fine. I didn't see any glaring coaching blunders in the first half. I didn't see any glaring coaching blunders in the first 12 to 15 minutes of the second half. But at the end, when they had to get the ball in, they couldn't. And, in the other game where Florida, God bless, had a bigger lead, but where they had to get the ball in, they're going 4 wides, they're spreading the floor, and they're getting the ball into their free throw shooters, and they're making their free throws. So when Duke absolutely had to get the ball in bounds, they couldn't do it.
And Jimmy made a point, actually. He's in Monte Carlo. He's still working. He said, we got to make a point about this inbounds. And I totally agree with him being very critical of teams who don't get the inbounds in enough. I go to LSU games. I watch them. I think this must be the worst inbounding team in the country. They need to take a timeout to inbound the ball with 10 minutes to go, and they come out of the timeout, and they still turn the ball over. However, this happens everywhere. This is not just an LSU thing. Half the country doesn't know how to inbound, and it reminds me so much, Charlie, and maybe you'll understand this, of something we complain about in football, that it's not practiced enough, inbounds. We talk about inbounding the basketball. Maybe you could take a guess at what irks us so much in football. Why don't teams do this?
Why don't they tackle better?
I'm thinking specifically of the most similar comparison I can think of. Why don't teams go under center in like a fourth and short situation or at the goal line?
No, we hate shot.
And the thing we hear about from coaches, well, it takes time. It takes time to go under center. And granted, you have to inbound the ball. You don't have to take it under center. But here's the big thing. You don't have to. And I understand college coaches complain they don't get enough time. They're limited by the NCAA in terms of what they can do. But in these high leverage moments, don't you want to have practiced these things? Don't you want to have inbounded the basketball under pressure? Don't you want to, in a 4th and 1, have the best play you could do, which is have your guy under center? Sure, you might not use it very often, but when the game matters, you have practiced it. And teams do not practice inbounds enough. That is a problem. Considering moments like this, sure, most of the game, they didn't really need to practice that. But when it mattered, they needed to practice inbounds. And, well, they weren't ready. Look at Houston. They're in this situation because of an inbounds play that they drew up. And granted, that was great scouting as well.
Right.
But, maybe they knew Braden Smith was going to leave the inbounder. But they won a game because of inbounding. That's what you need to practice. And Duke, Shire's done a great job this year, but they didn't have that ready to go.
I call it, with the 2-point conversions especially, or a 4th and short down by the goal line, do I have a play in my pocket? Do I have something that I have scouted that I absolutely know is going to work? Unless somebody falls down, this is going to work. And do I have an inbounds play for just this situation, something that we have rep time and time and time again that I know, like unless somebody falls down or just flat out drops the ball, this is going to work. We have executed this. If you watch the women's game yesterday, they run that handoff play as well as anybody in the game. Okay, and they talked a little bit in the pregame and a lot during the game about how much South Carolina, from the time the game ended on Friday night till the tip off on Sunday, they worked and worked and worked and worked and worked on defending that handoff that UConn runs, and they still couldn't stop it. Because UConn runs that better than anybody in the men's or the women's game. So what do you have that you can run? When I absolutely positively have to get the ball in bounds. If I'm Duke, what do I have? Do I have a play in my pocket? They didn't. Now we get to the last play, the last shot. What did you think of the shot that they got when Flag missed?
It wasn't great. Ideally, they got it in the right player's hands, right? You want Flag to take the shot. 15-foot sort of mid-range jumper.
A little inside the free throw line, right?
Yeah,
14
not
feet.
the best look, but that happens. I mean, there's so much iso ball nowadays. It wasn't the worst. It wasn't the most egregious thing ever. You had the best player taking the shot.
I didn't hate it. Would I rather have a wide – first of all, I want Flag shooting, okay? If I can get Knipple a wide-open look, great, but Houston's pretty keyed in at this point. So, again, what do I have? Do I have a play in my pocket? I get the ball to Cooper Flag. I get a shot he's capable of making. He missed it. He missed it short. So what can you say? I was shocked watching this thing. We had Houston and the points. The entire second half, I'm basically going, just hang around, and maybe you can get in the back door to cover at the end. At no point in that second half, until they took the lead, that I think Houston was going to win. And usually you can get a better read on this. This is trending. I know where they're going. No, at no point until they actually took the lead that I think Houston was going to win the basketball game in the second. Going into halftime, I thought, okay, they're in there. Okay, they haven't played great, but they're within 6 points. But as the second half started, and Duke got it to double digits, and it ain't. Houston's not going to get there. Maybe they'll cover, but they're not going to win.
And even then, it took Houston, Jawan Roberts, a 63% free throw shooter, making both of his free throws. When Toppin again for Texas Tech, that's why they lost the game. They lost front end in 1-1s. A couple quick stats here. Over the last 25 years, there have been over 7,800 instances of a Division I team trailing by 5 or more points at least 5 times in a single season. Houston is 5-0. They're the only team ever. They're 5-0 when trailing by 5 or more points.
Do the setup again.
How many? Over 7,800 instances. Division I team trailing by at least 5 points at halftime, at least 5 times during a season. Okay. They are 5-0. They are undefeated when trailing by 5 or more.
They're a tough basketball team. We said it a bunch of times last week. They look like a bunch of grown-ups. Okay, I'm sorry. We hate to talk about college kids like that. They're all adults, but there's the young group and the old group, and Houston's an old group. They're a bunch of old souls. They're tough. They're seasoned. The culture, we use that word a little bit much. They've got all of that.
And Duke's the best team. Lack of being tested this year, that's probably what cost them here. They just weren't quite ready for enough of those close games.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I can't tell you you're wrong there. But if they got an inbounds play and they make a free throw,
maybe they need experience doing that.
Maybe they did. We're here at the Walk-Ons in Brewley. Come on, watch the national championship game tonight on National Beer Day, Houston and Florida. Limited time to transfusion cocktails. It is the transfusion mix and a little bit of rum put in there. Over 4 dozen beers on tap here. If you're a beer person, this is as good a place as you can come to get pretty much anything you want on draft, and they do seasonal beers here right now. The NOLA Polymania is new. The Vacation Juice Pale Ale is new. Those are a couple of the spring beers that they've got here on tap. Terrific menu and a wonderful place here. We're hanging out in the front covered area. The garage doors are down today. The weather ain't the best, but we're going to be okay. Live at lunch here from Walk-Ons in Brewley, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Downtown Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown, your law firm for a lifetime. Both Charlie and I have used Dana's specialized team of attorneys for different reasons, for different things, for different reasons, for different stages of our lives, and did not hesitate one bit when some friends or acquaintances have some issues and need some advice as well. So, downtown Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown, your law firm for a lifetime, certainly is mine. 343-1111 and ocbrown.com.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Walk-Ons in Brewley on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
And we're back here at Walk-Ons in Brewley live at lunch. We're brought to you by the Thibodaux Store, 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodaux. Cajun cookware delivered to your door right now if you go to doitbest.com/Thibodaux Store. And of course, springtime is here. Get your yard, your flower beds, all of your garden areas in shape. Get that with your potting soils, your seeders, all of your garden tools, your hoses, available at the Thibodaux Store. And again, online, you can go to doitbest.com/Thibodaux Store, 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodaux. And once you get the yard in place, or in shape, you're going to want to enjoy those outside patio areas. Tons of grills, plus the big green egg cookers available at the Thibodaux Store. Get all of your extra accessories to go with those as well. Jambalaya pots, crawfish pots, and lots of grills at the Thibodaux Store. Again, 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodaux. First game wasn't nearly as, well, at the end anyway, with Florida kind of taking control in the second half. And, the first thing about this game, Max, was that we were, I don't say concerned, but we were curious about the effectiveness of Johni Broome. Was he going to be feeling the effects of the injury? And I'll be honest with you, watching him come off after warm-ups, and everything's amplified because everybody's waiting for the game all day. You go out and you watch Broome warm up, and he's coming back to the locker room, and it looks like the arm's hanging. I don't know if you saw that as he's walking back to the locker room after the last warm-ups, and it looks like the arm's hanging. And even I forgot who it was on the set said, it looks like, man, he's favoring it a little bit. Once the game started, there wasn't any concern to me about him. I thought how much pain was he in? I don't know. But I thought he was pretty effective there early, and some of those things that I was concerned about after watching the arm hang didn't get there. Auburn was good in the first half. Once you got into the second half, I thought Florida started to take control. And I just thought that they were the slightly better team. I don't think that they're, miles and miles ahead of Auburn. I think these are two really good basketball teams, and Florida just has a little bit of a matchup advantage. They're just a little bit better.
I don't know. I did notice Broome during the game. I didn't see what you said before the game, but during the game there were a couple moments where he was kind of, physical with Hawk or Condon or whatever, and he was kind of looking over the officials. He talked to the officials a little bit, and you could tell he kind of elbowed him one point, and he kind of reacted a little bit. So I do think it was bothering him. But ultimately, I do think Florida's the better team, the more talented team. And, yeah, Auburn maybe just peaked a little too early because they were the number one team in the country for much of the year. They were the number one team going into the tournament. They were number one overall seed, but they lost 3 of 4 coming in, and there were questions about them all year. I honestly, I'm not going to lie and say I didn't think Auburn was going to win the game at halftime. Florida made some adjustments, and I think we have to give Todd Golden credit because, to look ahead, we've doubted Todd Golden a little bit. He hadn't been in the Sweet 16 before. That's a bad trend for coaches to win it all, and I still think that he might be outcoached in the game tonight. But ultimately they did make the adjustments. There were people outside the locker room who said, they were getting some choice words at halftime about their effort, and so you got to give credit to Florida for that. But at the half, the way Auburn controlled that game, the way they scored at a very high level, I thought it was going to continue and that they were going to win the game.
See, is where Duke, with a 6-point lead at the half, I thought was very fortunate for Houston. The 8-point lead that Auburn had at the half didn't bother me nearly as much, where Florida was concerned to win the game, who we had also. Because I knew Florida could score a bunch of points. We were worried about Houston. Could they score 65, 70 points? I wasn't worried about Florida being able to score enough to win the game. And I thought that they would make enough plays to get them back in it. Now, would they make enough shots at the end? I didn't know that. But I thought they really started to take control. And the deeper the game got, the better they played. And Auburn lost this game at home in February. It was a decisive win for Florida. They were the much better team that night. They never led by less than 9 points in the second half. Auburn never even made a run at them, and that was at Auburn. So I thought Florida was the better team. I felt the same way about UConn and South Carolina yesterday. It's like, hang on a second. UConn went to Columbia and beat them by 29. They're the better team. And Paige Beckers had 3 field goals in that game. I mean, it's not like their best player went over there and went crazy. She had 3 field goals and 3 turnovers. They still won by 29. Janai Broome played in that game at Auburn. He was healthy in that game. He had 18 points in that game, and Florida still won the game by double digits. So I felt that the run was coming for Florida. I didn't think they would separate, because they had the deficit to overcome, but I thought that they would win the game. I don't want to say I was overconfident at half, but I didn't feel like that was an insurmountable lead, that 8-point advantage.
Walter Clayton Jr. I mean, 34 points, 5 of 8. He's so clutch as well. We've seen that throughout the tournament. This guy is, I understand he's a little older. He started out at Iona. He's 6'2", maybe a little undersized. But this guy right now is going projected second round in the NBA draft. I'm sorry. There are too many people who can't help but mention Steph Curry when they watch this guy play. Like John Broome is projected higher right now in some of the mock drafts we're seeing. I would rather, in the pros, right now Walter Clayton Jr. over John Broome, just as a pro.
Well, yeah, because you've got a skill set there. Does Broome's game translate to the next level as well as Clayton's does? I don't know. I'm kind of bad about that with some of these older players, and the NBA puts such a premium on drafting these guys. I mean, when you see him listed in the draft projections, it's like he's 19.2 years old. Okay, well, if he was 19.4 years old, would that make that big of a difference? I mean, are we really talking about 2 months? But yeah, that becomes a part of the deal. Not for nothing, but since you mentioned Clayton, Richard, Martin, all these guys are what? Mid-major transfers. What's LSU spent the last 5 days doing? Getting a bunch of mid-major transfers, guys that were really good. We're going to talk about that in the second hour, but Florida, 2 coaches came in the same year, okay? Golden's got his team in the national championship game. McMahon's got his team in basically a state of turning over the entire roster yet again. But this time, at least LSU's following a blueprint that is successful for other teams in the conference. I mean, the best player on both of these teams, mid-major transfer. Now, I don't know if you're going to catch, the next Clayton. I don't know if you're going to catch the next Broome. I don't know if the next Connect. I mean, I can't look at all of these guys and say, that's the one. That's the next Broome. That's the next Clayton. That's the next Connect. I don't know. They could, come in and be just a really good player. I can't tell you. I hope that they know. But that's how this roster got from just being a borderline team to being in the national championship game. They went out and got some mid-majors, and these guys became stars at this level. We'll take a break. Florida and Houston for the national title tonight. Come by and watch it at Walk-Ons on National Beer Day. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Don't forget our friends at Total Diamond Performance. That's right, the Total Diamond Performance summer baseball and softball skills camps. 2-day, 3-day, 4-day options. Camp format allows players to receive detailed instruction on all facets of the game that will assist them in becoming the total baseball player. Contact Nick Schneider at nick@tdpbaseball.com to register today. Total Diamond Performance summer baseball and softball skill camps to accommodate your schedule. 2-day, 3-day, and 4-day options.
Jimmy, Charlie, and Troy. Three best buddies sitting around talking sports bets. Let's welcome in Troy Macker from Bet Rivers.
Here at Walk-Ons in Bruley on National Beer Day with over 4 dozen beers on tap here. Great place to watch the national championship game between Houston and Florida tonight, or LSU baseball later in the week. Supposed to be perfect weather down in Thibodaux tomorrow night for their midweek game. Troy, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on again.
All right, the national semifinals. Florida in an 8-point hole at the half, dug themselves out of that and won. I thought, I won't say going away, but I felt like they were the better team. But the ending of the Duke and Houston game, just from where I was watching the game in a very crowded area, the gasps, at some of these plays in the last 40 seconds. What were you thinking watching Houston complete this comeback?
I was thinking that Houston is going to come up short. This is what they do against elite teams. We know they're insanely good. Their defense has led them to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, what seems like 6 or 7 straight years, but they always come up a shot or two, a possession or two short. And with 3 minutes to go, I think Duke stretched their lead to like 8 points. It happened like 11, but it's now 8. And Houston was hitting tough shots, but then, Duke would get a bucket to the other end. And I just thought that Houston was going to come up short again. And then they started hitting shots, and they put Duke on the line, and Duke missed shots. And my biggest concern with Duke this entire year is something I thought after Game 4. And it's that Cooper Flagg is 18 years old. He is incredibly talented, but that team is not very good in the clutch in the waning moments of a close game. As soon as he got the ball in that designed play with 30 seconds to go and he just started backing it in, I was like, he's going to force up a shot, and it's not going to go in. Now, Duke had been woodshedding teams by 25, 30 points, so I didn't really weigh that into whether or not I thought they'd win or lose as much because they've just been so much better. But as the game's winding down, I'm like, oh, my God, is Houston going to do this? No, they don't. They're going to come up short. But at the same time, Duke is not – I think they're 2-4 in games decided by 6 or less points. It's still crazy to wrap my head around. I mean, and you tacked it on as a second leg of an incredible basketball game. The first half of that Florida Auburn game was some of the best basketball I've seen all year. This might have been the best Saturday Final Four we've seen ever. I'd certainly have to go back and look at 90s, 80s, and whatnot. But it was such an incredible basketball affair on Saturday, and ending in what a lot of people wanted to see was Duke choke, Duke give up the game. I think Houston took it as much as Duke gave it. They made Duke tap out. It was not a huge, massive, one-sided choke job, but that's what Houston does. They make you tap out, and they were able to hit enough shots and get to the foul line to close it out in just one of the surprising comebacks we've seen in tournament history.
So Duke, in these tight situations that they haven't had very many of, this is a tough problem to have.
Right.
Max was talking about Auburn in the first segment, said, did they peak too early as a team? Well, if you're Duke and you're blowing everybody out, I don't know what a coach is supposed to do about that. Do you tell your team, don't blow them out? We need to play in some close games, so don't blow them out. Or, if you're Auburn and you're streaking in how many they had won in a row when Florida beat them, I don't know what it was, but, they had won, I don't think, 19 out of 21 or something like that. Well, we need to, we need to play more close games. What do? You can't tell your team not to play great basketball in January and February, but I can't tell you that it wasn't a factor in this game for Duke.
But yeah, it's tricky because it's not even like the games were 10-point games. These are 30, 40, 20-point games that, you really, the foot is off the gas with 10 minutes to go. And even with 10 minutes to go in this game, it seems like, all right, Duke's going to win pretty comfortably, and there is a level of potentially complacency. You just don't make mistakes. But when that's how you're playing, it's kind of like if you come back from an injury and you're like, all right, let's just don't injure the knee again. When you start thinking about not screwing up, that's when you screw up. And it's the team they're playing against. It's the team you cannot screw up against in Houston. That is what they do. They are just they're a team you do not want to see in a dark alleyway. That is their mantra, their MO of their just ruthless defense. Their rotations are amazing. They bang the glass. They're physical. They're unflappable. I think they would have posed a threat against any team in the country in that spot, let alone Duke, which has the most talent in the country.
All right, let's get to it tonight. Florida is a 1-point favorite. The total is 141 tonight. What has the action shown you since the game came on the board Saturday night?
Yeah, we were looking at basically splits, under 60% confidence, and tickets are money on all the sides. But in the last 2 hours, we've seen money, come in on Houston to move it. It was roughly 60% of the money and 60% of the tickets on Florida to win outright. And now it's 54% of the money and 59% of the tickets on Florida. So we are starting to see some money on Houston come in. I think, that is the case because that number is getting right down to even money. The look-ahead line was, I think you could get Houston at plus 107. But since the games went final and it actually went on the board, it's been around minus 106. If you can find Houston today, even at plus 100, I would take it simply because I think this is going to be a very close game. I think if they play this game 10 times, it's one team wins 6 times, one team wins 4 times, it might even be 5-5. So this is a really, really tricky game to kind of handicap. 59% of the money is on Houston to cover. 57% of the tickets is on Florida to cover. And the over-under, 62% of the money and 58% of the tickets are on over. And that's actually an increase from 2 hours ago when it was just 55% of the money and 57% of the tickets on the over. The look-ahead line, I think, on the over was like 143.5, and I pounced on the under there because I knew that number was going to come down. I think this game will be played in the 140s. But if you give, I'm an unders better. Houston's an unders team, not as much of an unders team as Michigan State. But at 143, that number seemed a little bit high. At 140.5 now, I don't know. I think this game will be played in the 140s. But if it is close, then you get free throw shooting. You get potential for overtime. So this is a very, very tricky game to handicap. But I think that's good because we have the 2 best teams in the country still left.
All right, that's your pick on the total, but who do you think is going to win the game?
Oh, man.
You knew the question was coming.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Houston win. They've been there time and time again. Kelvin Sampson has done a tremendous job. I mean, this team was an afterthought in the Conference USA a decade ago, and they've moved up, and they're now a power conference team, and they're, one of the 2-3 best teams in the Big 12 in basketball on a consistent basis. But Florida is the most consistently talented team. I think they have more depth. I think they have more size. They have the star of the show, Walter Clayton Jr. Him and LJ Cryer, that's going to be great to see them on the floor together. I'll go with Houston, but that's not my pick because I think Florida can win the game. I really don't know. I don't think it's going to be a blowout unless Houston got all their good shots out of the way against Duke, and they're drained. I could see potentially Florida, running away with it if that's the case, but that doesn't happen to Houston. They're unflappable. So I think this is just going to be a really tight, really close game. That's what I'm hoping for and what I think what's going to happen. But I do have Houston in one of my brackets, a bracket that I was in last place the entire tournament, and someone texted me and said, if Houston wins, you win, because I was the only person to pick Houston, and I had them beating Florida in the national championship game. So I'll go with Houston because I have some money on the line.
I'm going with Houston because it's one of the few things I've been able to talk Jimmy out into this year. We were doing this back, I think, in February. And how many teams can win the national championship? And we were listening. I said, I think Houston can win. He says, I don't think Houston can win it. But by the time we got into March, you come right. Yeah, actually, I think they can win it. So I hope, for that reason, that they win it. But I think it might be Kelvin Sampson's time. Houston's come up close so many times. They've gone into that. We watched that national championship game in '83 when they were clearly the best team. They played North Carolina State 50 times. They're winning 49, but not that night. Maybe this is finally Houston's time tonight. I can't argue against Florida's chances on paper. They're a terrific team, and if they win, I'm not going to be shocked. But I'm going to go with Houston. That was my pick at the beginning of the tournament, so I'm rooting for my pick, Troy. That's not against the rules, is it?
No, not at all. I'm rooting for a really good game because that's what we got on Saturday, and I want more of that. And I'm rooting for me to make some money, which I think we should all root for. Not just me making money, but anyone making money.
Follow him on Twitter, Troy Macker, MACHIR, Bet Rivers. Troy, we always appreciate it. We'll talk to you on Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Here at Walk-Ons in Brewley, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Walk-Ons in Brewley on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back here at Walk-Ons in Brewley, and we are back on YouTube now after a little bit of a short hiatus there at the beginning of the show. Second hour, we'll come back with LSU baseball and their big sweep over the weekend. Kind of a historic some numbers over the weekend. In the meantime, we got to do LSU men's basketball looks a hell of a lot different than it did last week at this time. Both on the roster, on the bench, in the front office. Shall I say that? We'll get to that story as well. Want to tell you, though, that LSU women's basketball has picked up a big player in the transfer portal, a 6'5" center from Notre Dame named Kate Koval. Koval was a freshman last year at Notre Dame. She played in 32 games, started 10 of them, 5.3 points, 4.8 rebounds, 18 minutes per game. She was a top 5 national recruit when Notre Dame got her, and LSU was looking, obviously with Anissa Morrow moving on, to get some size in the post. Well, Koval will take care of that at 6'5", and again, she was a top 5 national recruit coming out of high school. She is originally from the Ukraine. Hour number 2 straight ahead, live at Walk-Ons in Brewley, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Walk-Ons in Brewley on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
And we return here at Walk-Ons in Brewley. Again, we're back on YouTube right now after some technical problems. Charles Handicraft, Max Gotro, Jimmy Ott is on vacation this week. Final Four concludes tonight. National championship game between Houston and Florida. Come on by right now. They have introduced their transfusion cocktail today, limited time, with the transfusion mix and a little bit of rum. Very refreshing, I understand, Max. So we may have to check this out. This is your stomping grounds.
It
here.
is. I frequent this establishment.
Max Gotro country here in Brewley. Also, their seasonal brews on tap right now. Over 4 dozen beers on tap. The NOLA Polymania beer is one of their spring brews. The Vacation Juice Pale Ale is also here on special right now as their seasonal brews right here at Walk-Ons in Brewley. LSU baseball went to Norman, Oklahoma, and swept 3 from what was previously the number 9 or number 10 team in the country, Oklahoma. Friday we talked about Cade Anderson's gem. Absolute phenomenal performance. 135 pitches. As soon as we're finished with the show here today, going over to do a podcast with Dan Canaveri and Doug Thompson like we do every Monday on the Handycast. And I'm going to ask them about the pitch count and what they think about it. That'll be posted on YouTube later on, probably late this afternoon. But we talked about that on Friday. So the game on Friday night was an absolute walkover for LSU. They won the game 10-2. Anthony Ianson continues to get better. This weekend, LSU's pitchers gave up no earned runs. That's something that hasn't happened in an SEC series since LSU's been keeping records. Okay, they've only gone 3 games without giving up an earned run a couple of times, period, in the modern era. But since they started keeping these stats for SEC games, which goes back to the early 90s, 92, I believe, is the first year they've got all complete records on this, according to what Todd Police told us. This is the first time they've ever gone through an SEC series and not given up an earned run. Now, let's do a little context here. This is LSU's first ever trip to L. Dale Mitchell Park. Max, when they went into this series, I thought, yeah, somewhere along the line I've seen a game played at Oklahoma. As soon as I watched the intro and about an inning of baseball, I realized that I hadn't, because I would have remembered that. I visited every park in the Southeastern Conference when I was doing games. Now this was except for Missouri. All right. I can say that before Oklahoma and Texas came into the league, every park in the SEC was a hitter's park. I wouldn't. There are various degrees of hitter's parks, but every single one of them, reasonable dimensions, reasonable weather, reasonable amount of foul territory, they all favor the hitters. The 2 new additions to the league favor the pitchers. And I think they favor the Dish Falk Field and Dale Mitchell Field, Texas and Oklahoma.
I'll push back a little bit. The announcers mentioned this, that Dale Mitchell is actually a normally hitter-friendly ballpark because normally the wind is blowing out.
Okay.
And this week it was blowing in.
Right. And I got to – it's 410 to straightaway to center field. Okay, so this is a big park. 410
corners, it looks a little smaller.
It's 330 down the line, which
okay.
is the same thing it is down here.
Sure.
But in the outfield,
sure.
in the deepest part of the power alleys and straightaway center field, I don't think anybody else in the league goes 410. LSU goes 405, and doesn't sound like much, but it is. Now this weekend, the conditions were frigid. It was in the 40s. It felt much colder than that. I talked to people that were there. This was not a pleasant environment to watch a baseball game as far as the weather went, and everything that went to the outfield, just about it, especially if it went into the center part, any power alley to power alley, it was just going to die out there. And so LSU's pitchers, I thought, did a good job keeping Oklahoma off balance. They may have walked a few, but they were pitching to contact because, man, look, it was just going to be very, very difficult to piece together enough hits with the way that the weather was going. And just like they have done several weekends in SEC play, they have gotten their 5 innings or so out of the starters besides Anderson, and in some cases Anderson, just not this weekend. And they've turned it over to Case and Evans, and they've turned it over to Zach Cowan. And these guys have become super closers. They're not 1-inning guys. They're not 2-inning guys. This weekend, Evans goes 3 1/3 and doesn't give up an earned run, and Cowan goes 4 and doesn't give up an earned run. If you're a pitching coach, this is utopia. And by the way, we send our condolences out to Nate Yeske, who lost his father on Thursday. We didn't mention that on Friday, didn't know about it, but we'll send our condolences out to him. But if you can get 5 innings out of your starter and 4 innings out of your reliever, most pitching staffs aren't set up this way because you can't count on a 4-inning guy, a 3 or 4 inning guy out of your bullpen. You know why? Because if you could, he'd be in the starting rotation. You try and stretch him out a little bit more than that. These guys have been absolutely fantastic. That plus the conditions, even with what I thought was a little bit of a tight zone on Saturday for Game 3, and tight zone is being kind, I thought LSU's pitching was absolutely phenomenal. I thought Cowan had to throw strike 3 times to end the game.
Yeah, at least one of them.
On Saturday. So you had a little bit of a tight zone, but, man, the pitching conditions were absolutely Great for pitchers, lousy for the hitters. But LSU did enough offensively. Again, you're seeing contributions from all over this lineup. Curiel is easy, all right? That's a guy who set a record this weekend for consecutive games on base. Jared Jones had another good weekend. But down at the bottom of the lineup, Luis Hernandez had 3 doubles on the weekend. And Chris Stanfield, who there was starting to be some rumblings among some of the fans. Hey, man, is he coming out of the lineup? No, he's not coming out of the lineup. He had 4 more hits in the game on Friday and 2 more at-bats on Saturday that I thought were key to the game. The walk and then plus the run scored. And he is saving you runs in center field. I mean, maybe not in this series because everything was dead out there. But he's saving you runs in center field. As a base runner, he comes around to score on that double from first base. And the ball was in left field. This is no guarantee that he's going to score. He comes around, and that's a monster run. They won the game by 1 run. Okay, so his speed is helping you out. You want to get on him Friday night for missing a sign on the squeeze play. Well, yeah, you got to catch that sign. All right, that's on him. But I thought 2 other things. Number one, I thought they should have let him swing away because he had doubled the time before that. And then the second thing was, I'm not a real big fan of squeezing with the catcher at third base, the catcher running at third base. If you get the bunt down, it's going to be and it wasn't a suicide, but if you get the bunt down, it's going to be a bang-bang play at the plate a lot of times. I don't want to do that with the catcher running. I'd rather let him swing away. I don't know how you feel about squeezing with the catcher running at third. I'm not wild about that. And they have executed a number of squeezes this year, regular and suicide. But I probably wouldn't do that with Hernandez at third base.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I wouldn't have done it, but yeah, I mean they called it. He missed it. That's whatever.
If he gets it down, is Hernandez definitely going to score? I don't know. He's a catcher running,
right?
But his bats have picked up. They're getting Josh Pearson, who doesn't get to play every day. Okay, Pearson is hitting right about 300 with power. He hits 2 home runs in a game on Friday. It's not the easiest thing to be in and out of the lineup. He's got about 12 guys right now, 12 to 13 guys that he can put in this lineup and feel really good about it. I thought LSU's defense over the weekend, there were a couple of miscues, but for the most part, this has been a really sound defensive team. Max, they're 30-3. They're 10-2 in Southeastern Conference play. Everybody in this lineup can hit. You got 3 good starting pitchers. Okay, you got to kind of reevaluate what you think of as good starting pitchers. We talked about this with Anderson before he went to 9 innings. It's like, listen, if he's just a 5 or 6 inning guy, that's what it is. They don't expect him to do what Aaron Nola or Alex Lang or those guys or certainly Paul Skeens did, because those guys were, they got you deep in the game. It's like, well, I don't know if Anderson can do that. Well, now I know he can. He did it on Thursday night. Shores, I thought, was better this week than he was last week. I thought he was better last week than he was the week before that. I think he continues to get better. They only had to use 5 guys the whole weekend. What did we make fun of last week? Whoever it was that said, I just don't know after you get past the first 6 or 7 guys how many, good pitchers LSU has. Like, boss, I didn't see them get to the College World Series and win it with less than 5 pitchers that were really good. So that's plenty enough. You're playing good defense. You've got good starting pitching. You've got 2 lights-out relievers. You've got a good base-running team. There's nothing about this team that I don't like. They're not perfect. Do I wish I had one more guy out of the bullpen that I could count on? Sure. And when I get one more, I'd like one more after that. Maybe it's Newt, who's 2 years post-Tommy John now. Maybe it's Schmidt. The light comes on for the freshman late in the season. I can remember Zach Hess, who was lights out, unhittable in Omaha. in 2017, struggling as late as the end of April that year. I remember Thatcher Hurd in 2023 struggling against a game against Nichols, who they play this week, in a midweek start in April, and I'm thinking, man, can they count on that guy? And he ends up pitching a national championship game. So there's plenty of time for one or two more guys to come out of that bullpen. But I got 5 guys. I mean, here at the beginning of April, it's before tax time. It skips big things. Like, by tax time, I want to know. I know plenty about this team. I know that everything they do is good enough to win this whole thing. I don't know if they're, when it comes time, are they going to get the key hit, get the key out, make the key defensive play like they did in 23? I don't know. But I know that they got enough. And they're 10-2. Look, I would love for them to win the Southeastern Conference, but by no means do they have to. They could play 500 ball the rest of the way, and I don't think they will, but they could and still be a top 8 national seed. I mean, if you get to 19-11, you got a great shot to be a national seed out of this conference. You still got games against buku top 15 RPI teams, including 3 this weekend. They got everything you need.
A couple of things. So
they're not perfect. There's room for improvement, but they got everything they need.
Let me backtrack on Stanfield. You mentioned Friday. I was I got it confused. That was game 2, not game 1. I was thinking back. He was 4 or 5. He was peppering the left fielder that game. He was incredible. Stanfield was 4 or 5, but 3 hits to the left fielder. The poor left fielder couldn't catch it there in the 9th when they were getting roughed up. I was getting roughed up too because they had the under. But regardless, Stanfield was great, and he should be in center field probably the rest of the season unless something changes.
He will be.
LSU, no earned runs the whole week. I don't care if the wind's blowing 50 miles an hour, and that's great. That is incredible. And the other good thing about it is wind blowing in, the park was playing big. Whether it was normal or abnormal, we could argue about that. But you know what? Omaha plays big. So guess what? You got to throw strikes there. You got to challenge hitters there, and they did a good job of that this week against what was a top 10 team. The one little thing I will say, I've seen way too many people, and maybe it's just the algorithms on my Twitter account, way too many LSU fans complaining about rankings. Where is LSU ranked? It doesn't matter, okay? Whether they're ahead of Tennessee, they're now 3rd in the D1 baseball, top 25. Doesn't matter. Get to Omaha. They're a great team. They're as great of a team right now as you could ask for, I think, at this point in the season because of the lack of questions that we really have. Sure, you might want, a couple of pitchers here and there. You might want a deeper bullpen. We're going to find out because every year in Omaha, there are a couple of players who we don't expect who have elevated their games for LSU. So you got to love with where you are right now. It's hard to – if you're asking questions about certain parts of this team, you're grasping at straws really because, I mean, what? They didn't win the series against the best team they played in Texas. On the road. Is that what we're going to hold our hat on? I mean, LSU has been outstanding so far this year, and last weekend was no exception.
I don't care about the rankings. I really don't. When you get to the end of April, the beginning of May, I start to take a longer look at the RPI. We've got enough of a sample size now that we know they're going to be fine there. They're, just in case you're curious, they're number 6 today. That's plenty. Arkansas's number 1. They play 3 games with them.
You're on Baseball America.
I'm looking at the RPIs. The RPIs. Gotcha. Arkansas's number 1. They play 3 games with them. Tennessee's number 5. They play 3 games with them. Alabama's number 9. They play 3 games with them. Auburn's number 15. They play 3 games with them. RPI is not going to be a problem.
Coming up.
Yeah, RPI is not going to be a problem at all. All you got to do is keep yourself in the top 8. I honestly, I don't care all that much whether they are a 4 seed. No, I'm talking about national seed. Number 4 national seed, number 5 national seed, number 2 national seed. They've never been the number 1 national seed. Just so you know, so that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that the games are in Baton Rouge. If the games are in Baton Rouge, then that's all you can do. Okay, somebody comes in to this stadium and beats them twice in June. God bless you. Did everything you could. So to set up the regular season, they've done everything you could do. I'm glad you brought up Omaha though about the challenging the pitchers. I asked Jay Johnson. We did a forum before the season started with some guys, and I said, what's the challenge at playing at that park versus what you play in every week. I just told you earlier, pretty much every park in the league plays as a hitter's park. Most of them play similar to the box. Now, not Oklahoma this weekend and not Texas necessarily, but the rest of them, when you count on home runs, and this is not a team that's hitting a gigantic amount of home runs, and then you get to Omaha and it's harder to hit home runs. I've seen enough games in that park now. It's just tough to poke it out of that place. Well, you've been playing one way the whole year, and then you get to the championship. To win it, you got to kind of play a little bit different. This team doesn't. I mean, they'll hit some home runs, but it's not like they are dependent on the homer to score runs.
Stanfield on Friday. There you go. 4-5, an infield single and a single and 2 doubles, I believe, to left field. Just piecing them up in the ballpark.
And so you say, well, why don't you build your team like that every year to win in Omaha? Well, you got to win here to get there. Okay, so you can't just throw it away. I mean, you got to play 30 games in SEC parks where it's not nearly as hard to yank a ball out of the yard. So it's a balance. Right now, they've got that balance. There ain't much about this team that I don't like. Honestly, I mean, we got a long way to go, but they've swept 3 out of 4 SEC series. They've put themselves in a position where they can kind of limp home if they wanted to and still host. And I don't expect them to limp home. In fact, anything but. I think this team will probably end up winning 22 games in the Southeastern Conference. I don't know if that's enough to win the league. I love regular season baseball, but winning the conference championship is not the most important thing here. Just getting in that top 8 is. So if Texas edges them by a game, or Arkansas or Georgia or whoever, Tennessee edges them by a game, so be it. Just give me the top 8. And they're going. If they don't do that at this point, it will be a huge surprise.
The pitching staff, we had some questions about them at points in this year. I love them. Love them the way it is right now. Now, throw an injury or 2 in there, albeit hope to death not, then that would change things. But that happens everywhere. That happens everywhere.
The questions are going to be, who can you count on after the top 5?
Right.
There are a half a dozen guys that I think could emerge. I don't know if any of them will. But is Maverick Rizzi good enough to pitch in this league? Again, yes. Is William Schmidt good? Yes. Jaden Newt? Yes. Yep. I mean, all of these guys, and there's 3 or 4 more. I just need 1 or 2 of those guys to emerge, and that's really just to kind of get you through the rest of the season. They got enough frontline guys to win and win big. Schedule, is pretty thick the next 4 weeks. You got Auburn, you got Alabama, you got Tennessee. Texas A&M is now showing signs of life, but when you get them a month later, they're off to a terrible start. This stuff ain't automatic, man. Florida is 1-11. Last year, what was LSU at this time? They were 3-9, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
I don't care how good your recruiting is or your team is or whatever. You still got to go out and win games. It's not the uniforms don't win anything. You got to go out there and execute, and they've done it. So you're in the middle of a 2-week road trip. You go to Nichols tomorrow night. Get the rest of the bullpen some work. I mean, those guys all need to pitch
pitching right now.
You can leave the top 5 guys home. You have to go down to Thibodeau, send everybody else, get through that game, and then go to Auburn this weekend, and then you come home for 3 out of 4 in Southeastern Conference play. So LSU with a big weekend this week. You had the rest of the rankings.
D1 baseball: Arkansas, Texas, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, and then outside the top 5, Ole Miss is 6th, Georgia 7th. Florida State had a rough weekend. Wake Forest took 2 out of 3. I think run ruled them twice.
They didn't score very many runs.
They're 9th after being 4th last week. Auburn is 11th. That's who's coming this weekend. So Auburn 11th, Alabama 12th. Their next 2 SEC series.
We're brought to you by Coastal Capital Advisors, your full-service financial planners. Listen, when you're having these I'm going to call them fluctuations in the market, it's easy to get nervous. Fluctuation is a very nice word today, right? what you want is somebody that you can trust, that can keep you abreast of what is going on, that will work with you. Coastal Capital Advisors will do that. I had a conversation this morning with Philip. So when you have these situations, hey, what do I do? And not to panic, and to take advice from people who know what they're doing, deal with this every single day. Coastal Capital Advisors, they're going to tailor-make a plan for you in retirement. They're going to be able to work that plan, and they're going to be able to keep you up to date. It is a lifetime plan. Coastal Capital Advisors, they'll work with you as well as your business partners and your legal team, your tax professionals, to get you where you want to go as far as your financial goals. It doesn't matter where you are in life, no matter what your age, no matter what your financial situation, Coastal Capital Advisors will work for you. 337-981-1376. Online, coastalcapitaladv.com. Philip Fontenot and his staff. Advisory services provided by New Age Advisors, member FINRA SIPC. We'll take a break. Live at lunch from the Walk-Ons in Brewley, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Don't forget our friends at Legacy Title. Chad Reynolds, Legacy Title for all your real estate closings. 296-0060. Full-service title company servicing all of South Louisiana. Fast, friendly, professional services, which you get every time you call 296-0060. Ashley Bonham Donald, Mariana Broussard-Haynes, Adrian Reese-Galata, Michael Platt, and Natalie and Bradford Smith. Buying, building, refinancing, nobody chooses you but you. Chad Reynolds, Legacy Title, 296-0060.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Walk-Ons in Brewley on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Here at Walk-Ons in Brewley, where for a limited time they are offering the transfusion cocktail, the specific transfusion mix and a little bit of rum mixed in there. Try it tonight if you come by for the national championship game with Florida and Houston. Also on tap here, the new Vacation Juice Pale Ale. The NOLA Polymania beer is part of your seasonal beverages here at Walk-Ons. We're over 4 dozen beers on tap, and they change out some of the ones here as your springtime beers. Funny that they're doing transfusion cocktails. Had a transfusion of roster and bench in front office with LSU men's basketball. So since I may screw up the timeline a little bit here, but there's been movement this morning. There was movement over the weekend and a little bit late last week. So let me just kind of work backwards here. LSU a couple hours ago announced that Ronald Dupree is returning to LSU. Dupree, a member of John Brady's Sweet 16 team back in 2000, a terrific player here. Spent 11 years in the pro. We had Ronald on the show one time. He was playing in Israel, and he went through all the different places he had played. You want to talk about a basketball globetrotter. I asked him when we had him on the show, I said, what's the strangest thing you ever encountered playing basketball anywhere in Europe or in Asia? And he says, well, when we were in I think it was Lebanon, he says, you were looking out the hotel windows and the streets are on fire. So we had to be a little bit careful there. So this guy's seen a little bit of everything. He's back this is LSU's first general manager. This has become in vogue now in the last 2 years, general managers. The football team's had one for a few years, but this is the first one for the general manager. So what are they going to do? You're talking about player development. You're talking about data analysis. Basically, I would say, without knowing for sure, that the first thing this guy gets up and does every day, the general manager position, is you get up and see who's in the transfer portal, or you get up and see who's moving around. What they're tasking them to come up with is values for everybody that is available to you. This is how this works now. If the NBA, imagine it this way, if the NBA had every player eligible for free agency after the season, somebody in a front office somewhere would have to decide what every player in the league was worth. That's essentially what you have here. Every player in college basketball can become a free agent at the end of every season. Doesn't matter where they play, doesn't matter how good they are, doesn't matter what age they are, they can leave. Over 1,900 players in the transfer portal as of this morning. Dupree's job will be to keep abreast of the landscape. Who's available to us? What are they worth? How much money do we have to spend? I kind of scoffed at the idea of a general manager when LSU football first went. I was like, really? I thought this is what the head coach was supposed to do. There ain't enough hours in the day for a head coach to be able to put a value on everybody in the transfer portal in football or basketball, really. So this is what they do. Like I said, we've had Ronald Dupree on the show a few times. We covered him when he was at school. There's nothing I don't like about Ronald Dupree. He was a fantastic basketball player, and his basketball experience is extensive. So you're going to have a general manager? Bring this guy back in.
Spent the last 8 years with the Milwaukee Bucks, most recently as director of global scouting, worked in some player development programs as well there. This is maybe the most optimistic thing that I've heard from this offseason.
Yeah, you're pumped about that.
I like this. Bringing a general manager, you're basically admitting, look, we haven't been taking advantage of the current system as well as we should. Let's bring in someone with experience who's familiar with this program to actually make some changes, elevate this program. I think you look at this, maybe this shows that you're taking it a little bit more seriously. So I love this move.
That's seriously is a good word. I like that. And we can sit here and we can beat the crap out of them for what they've been mishmashing around for the last 3.5 years, and certainly we've done that, and it's aggravating. It's made a lot of people mad, and you've had to use kind of the language that you guys are just not taking. I've said it myself. You guys are just not taking men's basketball seriously. You don't want to win. Well, now it looks like you do. Okay, that doesn't mean you're going to, but it looks like now you're at least. You want to play on the same field as everybody else.
Stanford brought in Andrew Luck. Why? Because Stanford hasn't been performing to the levels they once were. So they have Frank Reich as an interim head coach. It's a little abnormal, but they've got Andrew Luck heading the program, doing something about it. So maybe Ronald Dupree Jr. can do something similar here.
They also added Yasir Rosemond, who is on the staff at Indiana the last 4 seasons as an assistant coach. So he will be joining the staff. He was with the Hoosiers for the last 4 seasons. He's also been at Oregon. He was at Seattle. He was at Georgia back in 2014, so another long career. Now, that's the front office and the staff. Max, in the last week, they have added 5 players. Michael Nwoko from Mississippi State, a big body. De'Don Thomas, the point guard from UNLV. We spent a lot of time talking about him last week. And then since we did another show, our last show, Rashad King, an 18-point game score. Actually, I think we did talk about King from Northeastern. Max McKinnon. Over the weekend from Portland. McKinnon, a shooting guard, 6'6", 200 pounds, coming to them from Portland. And the Summit League Player of the Year, the most recent one, Markel Sutton, 6'9", out of Omaha. This is a group of, and I'm going to, for the moment, I'm going to say that the headliners, Sutton, King, and Thomas all come from various degrees of smaller schools, okay? Max, are these guys going to be good in the Southeastern Conference?
Well, depends who you ask, depends what you think.
Let me answer for you. You don't know. And
we don't know
either.
No, we don't.
And they don't, okay? You can say, well, you can score 18 points a game at Northeastern. Can you score in the Southeastern Conference? I don't know. Let's do a little comparison here. Where are these guys ranked according to the On3 rankings? And the On3 rankings are not wild about these guys, but I don't really care about that. But I want to make a comparison here.
So De'Don Thomas, that's your best player in this class. 9th on 247 Sports, 23rd on On3. Then there's a bit of a gap between everybody else. Marquel Sutton, 56th or 130th of the transfer portal class. Rashad King's ranked 86th in 247, not in the top 200 of On3. Michael Nwoku is 88th in 247, and we don't have a ranking on Max McKinnon, who comes from the Summit League, as you mentioned, or comes from Portland, 12 and 20 Portland. So not a whole lot of eyeballs, I guess, on him.
Okay. Now give me the rankings on we picked 5 players, I think. 1 last year and 4 this year. Dalton Connect out of Northern Colorado before he went to Tennessee.
So a couple of these, most of these were 2023 transfers. So they've been there a couple of years now. But
Connect left after last year, but he came in 23.
Dalton Connect was 13th and 20th in those rankings in 2023.
Not terribly different from what Thomas is. Janai Broom.
Janai Broom was 13th, 247 Sports. That was 2022, so a few years he's had at Auburn since.
Walter Clayton.
This is the one you're trying to emulate. He was ranked 69th on 247 Sports in 2023, coming out of Iona, and was up to 22nd on On3. So On3 was maybe a little bit more right on that one, but that was the longer shot that's kind of worked out for Florida.
You can watch him play tonight. Mark Sears.
I don't have anything on him. I have a couple others. Grant Nelson.
Grant Nelson. I'm sorry, I said Mark Sears. But Sears came from Ohio, but
sure. Grant Nelson was out of North Dakota State. He was 3rd in the 2023 portal class, according to 247, and 6th. So top 6, however you cut it, for Grant Nelson, who's had a very meaningful impact for Alabama, even if they didn't make the Final Four.
Okay, I thought Sears was the 5th guy. Who you had one more?
Another guy who's playing tonight. He did come from Baylor, so not from a small school by any means.
L.J. Cryer.
L.J. Cryer, who was 6th or 13th, depending on where you look. So all these guys, with the exception of Walter Clayton, were universally top 20 prospects, and you really just have one in this class, and D-Dan Thomas, who's 9th, as I mentioned, in 247, 23rd in On3.
I think it's what you should be doing. It's prudent. You're getting the best players out of these smaller schools. Is it going to work? I don't know, but I don't know what else to go do. If you just do it out of the high schools, that's not going to be enough. If some of the guys he got out of Murray State and some other places haven't worked out. Are these guys going to work out? Who can say? If they can't coach them up, then okay, you're going to have to try something else. But at least they are trying. At least they are putting forth. They are spending some money. They are putting forth the effort. They are modeling themselves after what has been successful at comparable schools, like the University of Florida. That's all you can ask. If it doesn't work out, well, then you try something different. We'll have this discussion at the end of the season.
Depending where you look to, depends on what you think of this class. 247 Sports has LSU as the 3rd best portal class, but that only brings in additions. It doesn't tell you subtractions. On3 looks at both of these, actually has LSU down to 64th when you look at what's coming in, what's going out.
There's nobody that's leaving that I can't live without. Okay, I'm not saying they're bad players. There's nobody leaving that I can't live without. There's not. If Robert Miller would have left, that would have upset me because I think the kid's got a significantly high ceiling. But the rest of it, they're good players. Or they can be good players. Okay, and maybe they'll get better. But there's nobody leaving that I can't live without.
The 2 that have announced so far: Victorious Miller to Oklahoma State. I do kind of think LSU will miss him a little bit, and Corey Chest staying in the conference, going to Ole Miss.
6 schools in 6 years for Victorious Miller. 4 in high school, LSU, and now Oklahoma State. Where's he going to be next year? Oklahoma?
Probably not Oklahoma State.
Right, not after the next season. We are brought to you by Louisiana Health and Injury Centers, helping you deal with pain. Dr. Michael Goff and his staff have done a great job for me and my family. So if you've got neck pain, back pain, soreness, things that are keeping you from getting around as well as you'd like, or maybe these things are keeping you from getting a good night's sleep, let them target those problem areas and get you to feeling better, because that's what they've done with us, whether it be an exercise and stretching program or you get into dry needling, electric nerve stimulation, cryo, ultrasound therapy. They'll target those problem areas and get you back up to speed. Airline Highway, Plank Road, and Jefferson Highway near Drusilla. Dr. Michael Goff, Louisiana Health and Injury Centers. Live at the Walk-Ons in Bruley, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Yes, indeed. Don't forget our friends at K&M Automotive on Segan Lane. Segan and Perkins, between Perkins and I-10, right across from Ambrosia Bakery. So whatever, your engine light comes on, bring it on in. Belts, hoses, wheels, tires, general services like AC repair, AC service, undercar services, transmission work, electrical work, electronic, whatever you need on your vehicle, bring it to Jason Payne, because what you want in a mechanic his auto maintenance work is a fair deal. You've heard the horror stories. He'd be getting upcharged for unnecessary work. Not the case at K&M Automotive. 8445 Segan Lane, Segan but Perkins, across from Ambrosia Bakery. We're open 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Tell Jason you heard me talking about it right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. It's the only place I take my vehicle, K&M Automotive on Segan Lane.
With Ott and Hanny from Walk-Ons in Brewley on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Return here at Walk-Ons. NFL draft 2 weeks from Thursday. Max, we're going to watch these odds pretty good. They can change in a hurry. For the moment, though, the favorite to take Shedeur Sanders is right down the road in New Orleans. Give me these updated numbers.
Yeah, the DraftKings Sportsbook, our good friends over at the Queen. You can bet on this right now if you wish. Current odds to draft Shedeur Sanders. The New Orleans Saints are 3-1, plus 300, followed by the New York Giants, who have the third overall pick at plus 350. The Steelers, who don't pick until, I believe, 21, they're all the way down at 6-1, so they're the third choice, and then the Browns, who pick second, are fourth choice. So the Saints, there's some thought that Shedeur Sanders might be falling out of the top 5 right now. The Saints with the 9th pick, maybe they would stay there and take him. Maybe you could see them, trade up to 7 trade with the Jets, kind of make sure they get their quarterback if that's their guy. Worth mentioning over the weekend or late last week, the Colorado Pro Day. It wasn't a Pro Day. It was called something else, Showcase or whatever. Kellen Moore was not there, but we did see Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter in action there. So just curious there that Shedeur is right now, if there was one favorite to take Shedeur Sanders, it's the Saints.
I have mixed feelings about this. The idea that Shedeur Sanders would be available to New Orleans is something I've only come around to in about the last week. Up until that point, I just figured he would be off the board, and I'm not in favor of the Saints trading up for anybody, Sanders or anybody else, because they've just got too many needs. But now the idea that he could be there is a very real possibility. There are things I like about him. I think that he is an accurate quarterback. I think he's got enough arm. It's not a weak arm. It's not going to be a top 6 arm in the league or anything like that. But he's got enough arm. He's got enough athleticism. He's got plenty of starts. He's played a lot of college football. So those are all the things that I like about him. If I had a knock on him, it would be that he held the ball too long in a lot of situations, trying to make a play. And he had that opportunity at Colorado a lot. That I don't think is something that's going to translate well to the next level. I mean, there were times where he would hold it. He'd buy himself some time. I think probably the decision-making needs to get a little bit quicker, but that's any quarterback that you're talking about coming into the league. I'd probably say the same thing about Ward. I'd say the same thing about Dart. How fast can you process the information? There were times where Sanders, I thought, held the ball too long. But if they took him, I'd be, okay, now you got a quarterback that you're going to put in with. Would I do it? Probably not. I would probably go in another direction. But if they take Shedeur Sanders, okay, at least you have a plan now. Big fan of plans. Because right now I don't like their plan at all. They're planning to basically run back last year's team with just a few minor additions and whatever they get in the draft. I'm not wild about that plan at all. But if they took Sanders, I could make my peace with it. I would probably add somebody up front on either offense or defense, but at least with Sanders, it would be an infusion of life into this.
Absolutely.
The fan base could say, okay, we're not sure. It's not like this guy's John Elway, okay, but we think maybe there's a chance. And if he does hit, well, then you got your quarterback for a long time.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
I'm high on Shedeur. He's my number 1 quarterback in this class, which I know I'm on an island on pretty much there. He's a really good processor. I think a lot of his holding onto the ball had to do with the offense they ran. There was a whole lot of downfield routes. It was a bit of a simple offense. There's not a whole lot of spacing. Travis Hunter is like the one guy, of course, that we're trying to get to a lot. Mm-hmm. He was pressured at like 230 times last year. The next quarterback in this class was 160, I believe, maybe Jackson Dart. So he was pressured way more than everyone else was. He did, I think, start to see the pass rush coming a little bit because his pocket awareness started to drift as the season went on. But I'm in on Shedeur Sanders, and I think that would absolutely give this franchise a bolt of energy that they just have not had, which is almost a reason enough to make this move.
It remains to be seen how much Deion wants to be involved. If Deion's involved in the pre-draft process, look, I'm not wild about any of this stuff, and I said that about Archie Manning. I said that about Jack Elway. I'm not Zion Williamson's dad. I'm not for that. Okay, these guys are men. They've got agents. Stay out of it. All right, but I am at least coming around to the idea that after the draft process is over, that Deion, as Shedeur gets older, Deion will, he'll coach his team, and Shedeur will, he'll play his game. If he's in New Orleans, I certainly hope that is the case. We'll take a break, come back, wrap things up here at Walk-Ons in Bruley, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Don't forget our friends over at Los Reyes. I remember where I was with Paul Skeen's first start at PNC against Chicago Cubs. It was a Saturday. It was at Los Reyes. That's right. Man, I couldn't even finish my meal the other night. I had so much generous portions. When I came back from the plane from Vegas on Sunday evening, I took it home. Man, it's so good. And something about, the grilled chicken, the steak, it's really good, man. And the thing about it is, with generous portions, the one thing I love about a Mexican restaurant, when they have their homemade tortillas. Excellent stuff. Go by and check it out. Go see my buddy Scott. Go see Miss Blair behind the bar. Go see Kyle over there at Los Reyes Mexican Grill. Always going to put the game on. They're very accommodating with the 3 TVs behind the bar. Great happy hour 7 days a week. Los Reyes Mexican Grill on Lee, across from Mike Anderson's.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Walk-Ons in Bruley on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Final AP Women's College Basketball poll is out, and LSU finishes the season ranked 8th in the nation. Come on by here to Walk-Ons in Bruley for the national championship game tonight. Try the new Transfusion Cocktails, Zanola Polymania Beer, the Vacation Juice Pale Ale, your new seasonal beers here at Walk-Ons. Tomorrow we're at Mike Anderson's. For Max and Jordan, I'm Charles Henniger saying thanks and good afternoon, and stay tuned for Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.